edition of The Final Whistle on Lair Media, and our usual email info@lairmedia.tv if you want to make any comments. And thanks to all people who take the time to comment and look at this podcast later on in the week. It's very much appreciated, getting more popular by the week. Now, welcome along, Anna Moore, to this edition.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And welcome, Joe Waters, all the way from Seattle, USA. I love saying that, Seattle, USA.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And welcome, Derwin Honan, all the way from Whistling Straits, Derwin.
Yeah.
I heard you're Whistling Dixie, are you?
Dire Straits. I don't know about Whistling Straits.
Oh, Dire Straits. That's really good. I didn't think it was Dire, all right. But before we start the program, we want to officially acknowledge and mark the fact that Anna Moore, our regular here, was given a mayoral reception, our first citizen of Limerick City and County, a mayoral reception recently in the city here, conferred upon her for her sterling work in boxing, in women's boxing, and to recognise and more, I said, more than deserved, Anna. The night went well, I presume, Anna, was it?
It was a nice, I felt a fake because he was also honouring on the same night the Olympians, the Limerick Olympians, you know. And I felt like I was a fake.
No, nothing fake about you, Anna.
You know, I mean, these were people that went to represent their country in the Olympics.
Yeah.
I know I've travelled the world with boxing, and I've worked with the best female amateur boxers in Ireland, but it's their achievements that you take pleasure in, you know.
True, but it is well deserved, Anna, and we here at The Final Whistle absolutely are delighted for you and your family, of course, as well. You know,
congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
You know, Anna, you know, you talk about, you know, feeling like you're a fake there, but all those Olympians had somebody like you behind the scenes pushing them all the way, and they wouldn't have achieved what they had without people volunteering and paying their own money out to make sure that they were taken care of and they had as much as you could possibly give them. So the people behind the scenes are very rarely recognized, and they are probably the most important people that give us all the leg up that we need when we're trying to get to the next level of competition. So well done.
Thanks very much, Joe. Thank you.
Well said, Joe.
Now, anyway, we're going to start off with soccer, as we normally do, lads. And Man City, Arsenal, West Ham, Aston Villa. Who else? Who did I miss out? Man City, Arsenal, West Ham, Aston Villa. I put Arsenal in twice. God, they must have really taken my eye over the weekend. They're all winners this week in the Premiership. Actually, as we're on air at 8 o'clock on Monday the 27th, Brighton are playing tonight, just for people who are looking. And Brighton, if they win, they'll go top of the league, the Premiership, if they win tonight. So that's I suppose good for soccer. But anyway, did you get to see any of the soccer, Derwin? Did you get to see any of the soccer over the weekend?
I did. I watched Match of the Day 1 and Match of the Day 2.
Oh, just to be sure.
Just to be sure, I could only do the highlights. I couldn't watch the whole of that United Villa game.
Well, I was minding my dad for the weekend. I only back a while ago. My own dad, he's 91, but he's a Man U fan all his life, and I got to see the match with him, even though I wouldn't be sitting down watching the full match normally, not because it was Man United or anything, but I noticed a few things to me in the match that was very disquieting, irrespective of what club you follow, and that was the fact that some players don't seem to pass the ball to Ronaldo, which is a reflection on the players on the field and a reflection on the manager, because Greenwood went into the box 3 times. Twice, Ronaldo was in splendid isolation to get a pass and possibly score, and he didn't pass it to him. I don't know, Derwin, did you notice that?
Yeah, I think there was a couple of occasions he could have passed it square and Ronaldo was kind of free, but I think they're all trying to grab glory, aren't they?
And the penalty, why didn't Ronaldo take the penalty?
Beyond me. I don't understand that.
Did you see
Well,
that, George? Go on.
Well, I think, I mean, Bruno Fernandes has been taking the penalties since he's arrived there. So it's very, very difficult to just turn around to a fella who has been very successful from the penalty spot and say, well, you're not going to take him anymore. And, I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo might have turned around and said, you know what? Bruno's been doing this. I don't want to step in, let him continue doing it. And then we'll see what happens, So it's, I think, I mean, I've seen it from the other side where I've seen guys fighting over taking penalties, and you have your job, if you're the penalty taker on the team. I remember my manager, John Newman, telling me years ago when we were in the 4th division and we were going for promotion and we were playing Bradford City, and Tony Ford had scored 2 goals and we got a penalty, and I gave him the penalty because I was a penalty taker, but I gave it to him, and he scored with it and he got his hat trick, which is what I wanted. And then the next week we played Doncaster, not Doncaster, Darlington, and where Mike Lester had scored 2 goals and I gave him the penalty, and he missed it and didn't get his hat trick. And after the game, the manager pulled me and he said, look, you're the penalty taker or you're not. He said, that's it. He said, and I want you to look at it from the perspective. He said, you would have probably had 2 more goals to your tally, which makes you more valuable. And he said, and plus, he said, you already scored from play just after the penalty. If you scored a penalty and scored from play, you'd have been going for your hat trick.
Yeah.
So he said, this is your job. This is the job I trust you with, and I don't want you giving it to anybody else. And that's the way it is. And when guys tried to take it, I mean, the same happened with Leicester when they were playing Watford in the semi-final of the playoffs for the championship a few years ago, where they got a penalty with the last kick of the game, and if they score it, they win, and they're in the final at Wembley. And the guy who's supposed to take the penalties, somebody grabbed the ball out of his hands, took the penalty, hit the crossbar, it rebounded. Watford went the other way, and Troy Deeney scored, and Watford went through to the final, and Leicester were out.
Yeah.
And that's the difference in that's why you give people jobs, to do, and it just, it makes for it can make for disorganization and disharmony in a team when stuff like that happens.
Yeah. And Anna, probably not because you're here, one of the most exciting games I watched over the weekend was Brentford, and I forget who they were playing now, but it was a good match anyway.
But I actually think, people are saying, oh, Liverpool couldn't beat Brentford. Brentford have taken some of the big teams this season. I mean, they have 9 points now, I mean, I'd say any of the big teams that are playing them will find it very, very hard. We were happy with the point. We were lucky we weren't beaten, let's be honest about it, But again, like you were talking about the lads not passing to Ronaldo. Sometimes when if they're trying to pass, there could be someone in their way and they can't get it across. But you also have to remember the forwards left in the goals. Ronaldo can't do anything about, the backs, and Ronaldo can't do anything about the backs. And they kind of play a game that they go forward. Ronaldo doesn't seem to be in tune with that kind of a game, No,
we don't want to be too
the
harsh.
defense has to keep out the goals as well.
Yeah, we don't want to be too harsh on Solskjaer because it was only a couple of weeks ago when we were wondering, will Arsenal get a new manager? And suddenly there's three wins in a row and they have 9 points, and suddenly it's all rosy. So look, it's too early in the season to be making any pronouncements. Derwin, what do you think? Do you think that they'll, I know who they're playing next, I forgot to look, but do you think they'll, I mean, they were playing at home, which to me was very surprising that they, I don't know what it was.
Last year they were better away than they were at home.
And they have a guy who they bought for 75 million sitting on the sideline.
I'd love to see Cavani playing a bit more.
Yeah, he brings a bit of physicality and style, and I think he has an eye for a goal, all right,
Yeah.
He's more mobile.
to me, he looks a better player than Martial.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But you know, Pat, the way you're saying it's early in the season, but my opinion, I think teams shouldn't think that way, because you need to get your scores, you need to get your wins between this and Christmas. You know, I think that's very important, that, you know, that they get the wins, because not say, oh, like Asher, it's early yet. You don't want to be playing catch up.
well, that's true as well. And we'll wait. Well, we wish Brighton, hopefully I'll get an update later from my psychic out here, Martin, he'll give me an update. But Brighton are playing, as I said, and if they win, they go top of the league. I'm delighted for teams like that, you know. Now, before we leave soccer altogether, there was a third generation scored for Milan, a third man, Maldini, Paolo Maldini's son, 19 years of age. He scored for Milan over the weekend. Of course, his dad, as we know, Paolo, I saw him play, and his granddad scored as well for Milan. That's isn't that? I think it's a lovely story myself, you know. I didn't see.
It's bad when you remember their granddad.
I thought, yeah, it's to me. Well, Paolo played into his early 40s. I think it was 42. Paolo Maldini, that is. Do you remember him?
He gave it up 13 years ago.
Yeah. Do you remember him playing Paolo Maldini?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he was the sad part of it is that I remember reading about his father as well, way back in the early days when I started. He was coming to the end of his.
I'm not alone.
So yeah, but yeah, I mean, he was just a terrific player. You know, in a team with him and Baresi, and then you had Gullit, and you had Van Basten, and you had Rijkaard, I think, playing. I'm not sure if they all played together or not, but you know, that was a great AC Milan team around that time.
Oh, I mean, Italian team. I always love watching Italians playing soccer at national level. I mean, they're so passionate, you know. They have this. I won't say arrogance now. They have this certitude that they're going to win every game they're going to go out to play, like particularly the present team as well. But anyway, we of course had
Pat, before we go, my mum would say to my son when he'd go up on a Sunday, she'd never watch English soccer, but she loved Italian soccer. She would watch Italian soccer every week. She loved it.
Was it the Italian men, the legs? Was it the legs, I wonder? Was it?
No, she just loves soccer, good soccer.
A lot of women said to me now that they love the legs. They have lovely
this woman now was in her 80s and her 90s when she'd be watching them.
Not these big white farmers' legs from Yorkshire and Cumbria, you know, they wouldn't be as attractive, would they? The final whistle is the program on learnmedia.tv. Tell all your friends about us, and we have an email, info@learnmedia.tv. Now we have to discuss the Ryder Cup, and we won't spend much time on it because there's very little to talk about. Because I think myself that Europe will have to look. I think they'll have to consider looking at the way the team is picked. Steve Stricker, the captain of the English. The captain of the US team, picked half the team, Steve Stricker. And I'm not saying if Barry Harrington had a pick of 6 players, it may not have turned out different, but most certainly it would not have been as disastrous, in my opinion. And he's vice captains as well. It's not him alone, but Steve Stricker picked 6 players, foreign players. What do you think, Derwin? Was it all over Saturday night for you? Because for me, Friday morning proved to me that I don't want to be singling out any player, but McIlroy's head is up his behind because he couldn't play. He cannot play with anybody. Whatever is wrong with his game, I'm not here to analyze it. But to pick him again to go out after dinner on Friday, I thought, I know what the thinking behind that, Derwin, was. Were you surprised at that?
I think the big difference between what happened over the weekend is the Americans were running into form. The Europeans were out of form. Some of those players were picked a while back when they were, you know, I think the COVID things mixed up the rankings a bit. I think there's all.
Oh, yeah.
There's a whole manner of things, but they were outplayed from start to finish. From the moment that teed off, they were outplayed. I mean, I think Stricker was really clever because Stricker got them the week before or 2 weeks prior. He got basically those 12 guys to Whistling Straits. And they were there for a day, nearly 2 days, I think, where they walked around the course, they practiced, they played it. I think he was very shrewd in what he did. And he had 12 guys all really, I'm going to say, at the top of their games.
Did you see any of it, Joe? Did you see any of the golf?
Yeah, I watched most of it. You know, I think what Darwin says there and what you were talking about, you know, I didn't realize when we spoke about this before, but what did they have? 8 of the top 10 players in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we had John Rahm, who was the number 1, and then we had the one of the Scandinavian boys was number 12 or
Hovland.
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 And you know, and these guys just looked like they were primed for this.
Oh,
the way they came out.
They were ready for that.
Yeah, it was. They were just so fired up right from the start, and you know, and you can talk about the European guys and what have you. The team is a little bit older. You know, some of the guys that are playing are a little bit older, and they've done. And unfortunately, this is what happens: is that you look back on the history of these boys, that the guys that have played, the Rorys and the guys like that, and all those guys that have played in the previous tournaments, and they were all fantastic. Paul Casey the same way. I mean, I felt for Paul Casey. He had to go out and play against Justin. What was it, 4 times or 4 or 5 times?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and he never complained about it. He went out and he did his best each and every time. And Paul Casey's been a great servant for Europe in the Ryder Cup, as is some of the other boys. You know, so it just seemed like it was a bridge too far for our guys, and with the strength that the US has in depth, they could have probably picked another half a dozen guys that you could have slotted in there that would have been equally as good.
No, right now, and did you get to see any of it?
I only saw a small bit of McEnroe. That's all I saw, really. And I had boxing. We had our championships Friday and Saturday. So I saw very little of any sport other than boxing.
Well, you didn't get any black eye or a bloody nose. But Derwin, I'm saying that Saturday night they had 5 points out of 16.
Yeah.
That was just, I'm here in front of me, like, Garcia, to me, Garcia was a stalwart.
I think Garcia did really well, but I think you'll probably see this as being Garcia's last. Westwood's last.
Yeah.
I think Fitzpatrick was out of his depth because he's not been playing very well.
I said it last week.
Cyril Hatton runs hot and cold. I think Westwood's on his last one. He won't be back again.
No.
You know, I think Casey's got a question mark. Not sure he'll be on the next one.
Well, the next one is in 2 years in Rome.
Yeah, I think you'll find that'll be a very young team going in there.
Do you think they have good quality players coming up, Derwin?
They do. The European tours, you know, it's not a weak tour anymore. It's not the US tour, nothing. But it'll never ever will be.
What about our twins that we were trying to say their names? You know, the twins.
Oh, the
Danish guys. I mean, they're good. I know. We're not even going to say their name anymore. You can look it up yourselves. They're twins. They play golf. They're from Denmark, and they won a couple of tournaments between them.
I think you'll see the next Ryder Cup team as being a whole different.
But Poulter is over, is he?
Poulter's definitely last. I mean, I think you got Westwood, Fitzpatrick, Casey, Garcia, Poulter. I think they've had No, McIlroy will be there. McIlroy's playing golf at the moment with his brain full of techniques. He's trying to do things. He's not just going out there and playing golf. Joe,
Yeah.
you kick a ball, you never thought how to kick a ball, you just kicked it.
Right.
And when you play, same with you, Anna, if someone's going to punch, it's
That's
a reaction, it's not a thought process, it's a reaction.
Instinctive. Yeah.
And that's the same with golf. You reach a certain level and you shouldn't be out there thinking about how to do it. It's just about doing it. And
Right.
McIlroy to me is overcoached at the moment. His dad, the best thing his dad could do for McIlroy right now is actually take everybody away, take the noise away, and just go and play some social golf with his mates and go and play golf.
True.
I think you're right there. I mean, it just seems like Rory has lost his love for the game. He's got so much going through his mind that he's having. I mean, every time you listen to somebody talking about him, he's working on his swing. I've got this coach doing this. I got this mental coach doing that.
Yeah.
Get out and start hitting the ball like you did when you won the medal for the amateur as the best amateur at the Open. Just get out, get back to those days and start having fun with your game and let it come naturally to you. And it seems to me that, with all this pressure that's put on him to win, he can't win it. He can't win the Masters. He can't do this. He can't do that. It just seems that there's so much stuff piled on top of him that he just needs to clear his mind of it all and say, hey, I'm just going to go and swing the club.
Yeah.
He could playing with Larry. He should have been picking up on the fact that Larry doesn't think how to do it. Larry just does it.
Yeah.
And if you watch Shane Lowry, technically, he's not in the same league as McIlroy technically.
No.
But if you said which one looks happy and natural, you're going to say Lowry all day long.
Yeah.
And if you break that down and go, we don't know what's going off the golf course.
No.
Larry could be McIlroy could be having all kinds of grief at home. He could be, there could be all sorts of grief going on that we don't know about. But he doesn't look like a happy boy on a golf course.
No, he doesn't look happy within himself anyway. And
No.
I think that,
and I think that all that crying that came out afterwards, I think that's him where he's just like a pressure cooker and he's blown off there and he starts crying and all this business. And you watch Lowry crying. Lowry was crying because I think he bitterly did not want to lose.
that's right. So disappointment.
Whereas with McIlroy, if you watch those interviews on BBC website, McIlroy looks like that's a plea for help.
That's very sad now, Noe, because I mean we don't want to be too harsh on anyone because there's a whole dimension to the human element beside hitting a ball down the course. But I think the environment in America may not be agreeable to him and family life. Maybe a move back to Northern Ireland or Europe somewhere might do him the good. I don't know. We wish him well because, I mean, he is a talent, as Joe said, and I'm sure you'd concur with that because he's very exciting to watch. He put golf on the world stage from a European perspective. We mustn't forget that, It was in the doldrums for a few years. We were winning nothing, but McIlroy gave excitement back to the game in the same way that the Solheim Cup win gave women's golf a huge lift as well, Ella. You probably agree with that.
I know, it's very sad, listen, Darwin, and I agree with him and with Joe. I mean, just go out there, just play a game of golf. Don't think about your next shot. Just play golf and enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, it's no point in being out there, But I know it's their living in that, but as you said, Darwin, he's probably overthinking and he's not enjoying his game. And then again, as you said, family life mightn't be good. It might be business. It could be anything. But if you just kind of, as you say, go out and just play a game of golf and not think about the next shot, just take your shot.
Something's not right because his decision making's wrong as well. I mean, the shot that he played down the bank where he got snagged going through the ball and it turned into the left-hand lake. You know, that's bad thinking. And at his level, you don't make bad decisions like that. And, you know, that was I nearly want to say amateurish. And I don't mean that in a bad way to the golfers. But it was like, what are you trying to do? You know, I watched Rahm on those first 2 days in the foursomes where he's knocked it in that lake twice with a 3-wood. You know, it's out of range. What are you doing? I mean, you can't get there. Do it once is one thing, but to repeat it the next day, that doesn't make sense.
No, and I must say, before we leave golf, my favorite golfer over the weekend, I must say, he grew on me. I loved watching him. He wears his heart to his sleeve. That's my opinion only, is Bryson DeChambeau. I love watching him. I know there's something unpredictable, and I like that in someone, you know. He's liable to tell you where to go as to shake your hand, you know. I like watching. What do you think of him?
That tee shot he hit at the first, to pitch it into that green, you know, you've only got to watch what was going on before that. They were coming up anywhere between 30 to 60 yards short of the green. And to pitch it onto that green and then to go and hold the putt as well for 2, then, you know, he is a talent. Let's not get it wrong. He is a talent.
He is.
But he's a complex character, isn't he? I mean, he's playing in the World Long Drive Championships today and tomorrow.
He is.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have to, you know, I mean, I enjoyed watching him play this week. Sometimes he can be a guy that you kind of don't care too much for because he's like, but you know what, Derwin, didn't he do the same thing as Rory on that same hole where he got the same kind of a lie, and he had the ball beneath him and he put the ball into the lake on a bit farther up than Rory, and you know, and he was strong enough, or whatever happened, you know, he was playing well enough that he was able to ride that and get away with it. But, you know, I watched that on Sunday morning when he strode up to the first tee after Sergio and he put it on the green. I said to myself, we may as well turn the TV off now because this is over. You know, so this is just like going to a European Cup match where you're playing the second leg of it and it's knockout and you're losing 2-0 from the first leg and you go away and they score from the kickoff and it's like all the wind is taken out of your sails on that one. And it was just like, wow. Yeah. You know.
So I lived in America, Joe, and I've got lots of friends in America and we were texting on WhatsApp and stuff. You know, I said on yesterday morning that this is over by the time the 6th game goes out to play on that golf course. And if you look at the list, McIlroy won, but if you look at the list there, that was, I think, games 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 all won. You know, that was the Ryder Cup done and dusted. You know, Daniel Berger was the weakest member of that US team.
Yeah,
and they put him out last because they already knew that it was never going to get to the last man.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think Stricker was a good captain, and I think his players were in top form. I think you Europeans weren't. You know, they've gone in there playing bad as well, some of them, with question marks on. I mean, fair play to Poulter. He goes and wins the singles. But, you know, you kind of, you know, him and McIlroy together were like, that was a disaster.
Well, for people looking in, before we finish golf, McIlroy, Poulter and Westwood won their singles match, and Hovland and Fleetwood got a half in theirs. So they got 4 points out of the 12 on Sunday. Now, the final Whistles program on their media. We look forward to Rome anyway, the next Ryder Cup. The final Whistles program on their media.tv. We turned to boxing, and I said I was minding my dad the weekend, and he's a big boxing fan, so he had to fight. So we had to get out the grilled sausages and watch it. And my God, I thought it was shocking display of. I always suspected, not because he's an English boxer or anything, I always suspected that he wasn't up to much. when he beat Klitschko for the world title. Klitschko was 41 years of age, and it took him all night to beat him. And he was beaten by Andy Ruiz, a small man again with fast hands. And there again on Saturday night, he was beaten by Usyk, who's technically very good, technical boxer. I know what I'm talking about. Well, I thought he was I think he won all 12 rounds in my book. But anyway, they gave 2 or 3 or 4 of them to Joshua. But it was a shocking display, Anna. Did you see any of it?
I saw it on yesterday morning, but I mean, I never thought Anthony Joshua won the Olympics. I'm being honest about you. I didn't think he won the final of the Olympics. That to meet the man, he's a lovely man. I think when he was boxing at full strength, he was, but I think that's gone. The last time he lost, it was in America. But I mean, I felt sorry for him because he was in his own backyard on Saturday night. He had thousands there for him, and he just didn't have it. He didn't. Your man was first to the punch the whole time. And when I saw the result, and I saw his face was actually shocked when the result was called out. I don't know why it would be, but the Ukraine was first to the punch the whole time, And with Joshua, with his height, and that should have been more than capable. Maybe over the COVID, I'm not making excuses, but it takes the glass off of him and Tyson Fury boxing, But that will happen because that would make a lot of money because people would go to see that in England, But he's gone way, way back now in the rankings,
The only thing that happened for Tyson Fury and Joshua would be money because I think Joshua. What do you see any of the fight, Joe?
I didn't see any of the fight. I just saw a little bit. I read in the papers about it. I listened to the boxing commentators, and they were all of the same opinion as you folks that the Ukrainian was just way too clever, way smarter, way more technically sound as a boxer than Anthony Joshua was. And really, I don't know why the Joshua Fury fight didn't happen before, and I maybe there's a reason for it, because I really thought that was a huge money spinner for those guys. And now with him fighting another fight and going down and not having the belts on the line with Joshua, then it takes that much more value off the fight. I mean, I know there'll be people who will want to watch it, but I don't think it would have the global audience that it would have had if the belts were on the line.
Yeah, but you see, Joe, sometimes what happens with like Katie Taylor's last opponent, she was very novice, but they're given mandatory ones they have to take. They can't pick their own fights. If they're in line, if you're a world champion, they have 6 different belts from 6 different associations, which really and truly you're better off you just had one belt and a world body running it. But there's 6 different WBC, ABC, all these things. But they then are told, sorry, you cannot box that person because you're mandatory to us to box this person next. And if you don't, you lose your belt.
That's
and
right.
your title. So that could be the case with Joshua when he was boxing, that he had to take, we'll say, these mandatory fights. And that's probably why Tyson Fury himself didn't happen.
But Eddie Hearn's, he has it in all the Joshua fights that in their contract is that if he loses, he has a rematch.
He has a rematch again with your man.
Yeah, which again that puts someone at the back of the queue again, doesn't it?
It does.
Right.
Tyson Fury's now technically at the back of that queue because
Fury is giving Wilder his rematch, which I think Fury will destroy him if his head is right. And I can never see Joshua fighting Fury. If I was a manager of Joshua, I wouldn't put him into the same ring as Fury.
The only reason they might put that contest on or that fight on would be for money, and they would fill any stadium in England, I would think.
Yeah, that's their big final payday fight, really,
Yeah,
isn't it?
and that's just what I was going to say. Maybe not for Fury, but definitely for Joshua. But maybe not Fury. Fury would have another few maybe wins, as a world champion. I think he could do it once or twice again, But like you said, maybe for Joshua it would be a big payday himself and Tyson Fury in England, because they definitely, no matter where the box, they would pack that stadium.
Well, they would. Jeremy, did you see any of Joshua's fight? No.
No, I won't. I refuse to pay for boxing fights. On the basis that you pay full whack, you could get 12 rounds or 1 round.
Exactly.
So I listen to it on the radio. I love boxing on the radio.
Yeah, I remember listening to the old commentators in the 50s and 60s on the radio. We used to listen to it on AFN, American Forces Network. You have all the Dave, I forget his name, Barrington something, this English tough commentator. He was fantastic.
I wasn't born then, Pat.
Pat, you should tell your dad he can watch the Elite Championships live on Saturday night.
Are they being streamed live?
The first 8 start at 5, and they're being streamed by Tina G on YouTube.
5 p.m.
Yeah, on YouTube, and then at 7:30, Tina G are showing 14 of the finals live on Tina G from 7:30.
Or be Olive, August be Ray, August Cúpla Focal Gaelga.
I'd say your father would enjoy that now.
August Sean Bond.
Yes, his son actually was up there the other day. His son is working there.
To find listeners of the program on nearmedia.tv, before we leave boxing, there was a decision on the Ricky Hatton fight, which was scandalous. If people get a chance to see it on YouTube, he's a 6-rounder. He's 20 years of age. He's the son of his dad. Even the commentators on Sky, which are always politically correct and very septic and antiseptic, I suppose, some of the commentators in the boxing, shocking, but very partisan. I thought if you were listening to the Joshua fight on the radio, Derwin, you would say he was going to win it if you were just listening to the audio from Sky. But we were watching as well, of course. But 6 rounds of boxing against an Ecuadorian based in Spain, a lovely boxer. He won every round, the Ecuadorian, but they gave the fight to Ricky Hatton Jr. Ricky Hatton. You have to see to believe it. It was like Michael Conlon all over again in another era. As I said, info@theirmedia.tv. Where are we going? Well, Lewis Hamilton, the best Formula 1 driver in my lifetime so far. I must say, I've been only watching it since the 60s, and Lewis Hamilton won his 100th Formula 1 race on the Russian Grand Prix in Sochi, which was astonishing. If you saw the end of the race, you could hardly see the track with rain. And Verstappen started at the back of the grid and finished second, which augurs well for him. You know, I think as Lewis Hamilton said, I think it was a bit tongue-in-cheek. Well, he said, I'm a long ways from the winning line this year, you know, which is an awful lot of young drivers going. Do you see any of the Formula 1? No?
No, I didn't.
But we wish him well. I hope he wins it for the 7th time. I hope he wins it, you know, Lewis Hamilton himself, you know.
I think Lando Norris was a bit unlucky, wasn't he?
Huh? Lando Norris. Oh God, he was leading. As for people who didn't see it, he was leading, Lando Norris, and all he had to do was get around for another round and a half. Was it 1.5 laps? Was it?
Yeah, it started raining on the 5th from last lap. Then he had the wrong tyres on, and he stayed out there.
He stayed out, and I said, "Geez, no, Hamilton went in," and I said, "That's Hamilton's race done." No, he did the right thing. 5 laps in the end, but then. He skidded off, and he's a talented driver. We can't take that away from him. Now, another man we're claiming to be our own here, Tom Brady, as Dermot would know, he's Irish. He's the Irish quarterback with Tampa Bay.
Pat, isn't he Liam Brady's first cousin?
Jesus, it could be. Now, now, Joe, that's your job for next Monday. Find out where did all the family wind up sometime. With our exam to grand. We don't mind, we'll take any relation. There could be 21st cousin far removed, but
You've only got to fly over Ireland to qualify, haven't you?
That's all.
I mean, you can be about 5 miles out. That counts.
Yeah. 24-34 they lost anyway. It's our first loss of the year. Did you see any of the NFL, Joe? I did, I saw highlights. They lost 24-34 to the Los Angeles Rams, LA Rams, you know.
The Rams are a very good team. And they're in the same division as the Seattle Seahawks and San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals. And it's the strongest division in the NFL. And the Rams were committed to a young quarterback that they'd signed to a mega million contract 3 years ago. And the coach, Sean McVay, came to the conclusion that the quarterback was, he was taking too many, he wouldn't take a chance going down the field with the ball.
Right.
So they made an investment in another quarterback. They actually traded for the one that they got now, and this guy is a little bit more aggressive on the long ball, and has proved to be very, very successful for them. So the Rams are a serious team. The Bucs, unfortunately, they're kind of piling up the injuries now. They've got a lot of their starting players injured. On both sides, on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. So I think even one of them on catching a touchdown pass from Tom Brady landed awkwardly on his back and his left leg, and I think he was out for the rest of the game after that. So they're having a bit of a challenge. They're a good team, but they're going to be challenged now with injuries.
And all these conferences, is there 4 conferences? Am I wrong? Is there 4?
Well, you have the AFC and you have the NFC.
Yeah.
So there's 2 different conferences, and they each have 4 divisions in their own.
Yeah, 4.
So you have the AFC East, the AFC West, the NFC East, the NFC West.
Right.
Is I believe the way it goes.
And the winners of all those, will they qualify then, or how do they come at the end of it to qualify for the Super Bowl?
Well, you have the divisional winner, and then you have the wild card that comes out of each one. So you would have what would you have? 6 divisional winners and then the wild cards that would go with that. So a group like the AFC West, like the Seahawks, San Francisco, the Rams, they could be beaten up on every other division in the league, and it would not matter. They would only get maybe 1, possibly 2 teams out of the league.
Yes.
And you could have a team from another division with a losing record that would win the division and would go through.
Oh, I have it because of their division they could win 3, whereas you think could win all their games, and because of the competitiveness of the group, they'd be 4 or 3rd or 4th. Yes, yeah. So the Super Bowl, I suppose, is the holy grail for it, is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. When
did Seattle win it last?
Seattle won it last. Well, Seattle was in it 2 years in a row. They blew out the Broncos with Peyton Manning in the first one, and then in the second one, they lost to the New England Patriots. They lost to Tom Brady, the Irish Maverick. It lost to him in the final seconds. We were on the 4-yard line of the New England Patriots, and instead of giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch and letting him run the ball in for a touchdown, they decided to be clever and they ran a slant pattern and threw a pass, and the guy intercepted it in the end zone, and that was the end of it. So it was one of those things. But I want to say that was it 5 or 6 years ago now that happened.
I remember the New England Patriots one because I saw it late. I wouldn't watch it live, but there's a highlights program which I really enjoy. But the final whistle with Anna, Joe, and Derwin, that's great to have you. Now, a bit of rugby news. I don't even watch any rugby here, but the Irish women's team failed to qualify for the Rugby World Cup, first time since 1994. And sad day. Did you see any of that Anna over the weekend?
No, I just saw them being interviewed, and they were very upset. But they didn't, I mean, you would expect Ireland to beat Scotland, You
would, but Scotland
I mean, Ireland would have been in the top 2 or 3, wouldn't they? But I don't know. They just didn't seem to have it. They said that day.
And New Zealand, of course, won the championship down under. They beat a very, very fancied, a very, I suppose, buoyed up South African team who were tipped to win the next World Cup. When is the next World Cup in rugby, lads? Is it next year? I can't remember. In rugby union, I think it must be next year.
Was the last one last year?
No. I'm after forgetting that.
2 years. 2 years' time?
Huh?
Is it 2 years' time?
Is it 2 years' time?
Is it every 4 years?
Every 4 years, yeah.
23. It's 23, isn't it? Because it was 1919, wasn't it? It's
23 or 2 years' time. You're right, Derwin. Yeah, you're right. And the South African team are beaten out, except the New Zealand All Blacks found a way of winning as they normally do in these things. And
it's unusual.
I think a team to watch is Argentina. They're a very young, talented team. They're very. I know they didn't win many games against South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, but the thing about them, in my opinion, is they're playing against the best week in, month out. And if you're playing against the best, obviously you will improve. You'll know how to improve. You'll know what to do when it comes to the crunch matches. And I think that's what's missing in the Northern Hemisphere, because a lot of our rugby teams are pretty mediocre at national level. I'm talking about England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, France. Really, there's hardly a ball between them. And they are poor, in my opinion. They are poor. World standard speak. Australia have another young team coming up, which are going to be very good in the future. I think they're really.
That autumn internationals be interesting, won't it? Because Wales, I support Wales at rugby, but because of my mum. But you kind of.
That's your own fault.
But you kind of, they seem to beat themselves up all the time because they play New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, and Fiji. I mean, why don't they play,
Argentina,
Estonia, Croatia, and somebody else, and boost your confidence up a bit?
Yeah, I know. We're the same in Ireland. The autumn international. Well, look, we know what they are. They're a money spinning thing to make money, get money in, and for expense. We know what they are. They're for television. They're for the audience and to promote the game as well. But I don't know, Ireland. I don't think Ireland are capable of beating anybody other than maybe Wales or Scotland on a given day. Maybe France on a good day. But really, I think it's a minority sport. But no, Anna and myself are nearer than the two lads. Simon is back. He scored 2 tries, Anna, over the weekend.
So I saw him scoring the other day. My son was at the match as well.
Simon Zebo, a good Corkman.
Delighted to see him back. I mean, it'd be brilliant if I think he would be a good one to get back onto the Irish team.
Well, he was blackguarded, let's be honest with you,
He
because
was, yeah. But
because
see, that rule, is that rule now gone away? That
it was
if you
never
were
there.
playing outside of Ireland,
That rule only
you
applied.
wouldn't be picked to play for Ireland. But I think that's gone now, is it?
That rule was never really there. It's just nonsense, because Johnny Sexton would play in France and he played for Ireland. So how could that be a rule? Like, you know,
Well,
just,
that's what they said about Zebo that time, wasn't it?
we have an Englishman as a manager, Andy Fowler, and I'm afraid he's way out of his depth as regards coaching the national team. Anyway, I don't know about anything else, you know. And I don't know what it's money. I suppose it comes down to money, lads. If you can't buy the best, Joe, you probably know this more in America. If you can't buy the best coach, I know your price came down a bit later on in your career, but if you can't buy the best coach, you're in trouble, are you?
Well, you know, to be honest, I think that coaching is really overrated. I mean, it's the players that play the game and make the difference. I mean, you can give them things, you can do things for them, you can help them get better. But ultimately, if the players are not good enough, you're never going to be successful, really. And sometimes you get somebody like Joe Schmidt that will come along that will make a huge, impression on a group of people. But the Irish team that we had at that time was a very special group of guys as well. And you have to have, you have to have top players for you to really be successful, And I think it's very, very difficult to say, well, we got a top coach here, and really, if the players aren't good enough, they're not going to be able to do anything with them.
What about the college football? Not touch on it briefly. I mean, there's a lot of people made their name there coaching in college football in America, I know, and they went on to great things, So that seems to be, and the colleges seem to have huge budgets for football in some colleges anyway, Joe.
Well, they do, because, I mean, football is the biggest money spinner in college sports. Right. They're making millions and millions out of it.
But the budget,
I mean, we like here, we have the University of Washington, which is up the road here in Seattle, and then you have Washington State University, which is over in Pullman, which is on the east side of the state, and the two coaches of those respective college teams make more money than the governor of the state of Washington. They are the highest paid government employees in the state of Washington.
Oh, big God. Now, Darren, before we leave back to soccer again, Patrick Vieira, as you know, is the coach of Crystal Palace, and they're a goal up penalty from Zaha against Brighton. This is Monday the 27th. We're doing this show, so that's why we're giving out that, in case people think we've gone mad. But obviously, we were saying if Brighton win, they go top of the league, but Crystal Palace. Patrick Vieira, I suppose, he's in at the deep end in one way, I was surprised he took the job of a Premiership team, although, I mean, you'd have aspired to that, when he doesn't have any pedigree in the game, Derwin, managing-wise.
No, he had that, he did some work at Man City, didn't he?
Well, he did work at Man City for a little bit. Then he coached New York City, Man City's franchise over in the US.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that.
And then didn't he go somewhere in France? Was it Olympique Lyonnais he went to?
Yeah, I think
he was. Or was it? He did a little bit in France as well. So he's cut his teeth on a couple of different clubs, and they've been talking about him for some time that he might get a chance at a Premiership club, like a Crystal Palace, that would be looking for somebody with a high profile that might have an interesting future.
And before we finish completely, we kept the best till the last. Maidenhead. the trip to Maidenhead, Darwin, friend, Grimsby and Maidenhead. They played out a 1-1 draw, I believe.
Yeah, 1-1.
1-1.
Yeah.
Good result for Grimsby, although
Yeah.
but they should have won it.
850 fans went from Grimsby to Maidenhead for that game.
Yeah.
Okay. Lovely.
And I think 850 people, Joe, have seen your video.
And Grimsby are one of the only 2 unbeaten teams in the National League, so they're flying high. They're unbeaten still. We wish them well, Joe. Certainly we will. And those national finals, when are they on next weekend coming up?
They're on Saturday night, and if anyone wants to see them, it starts on YouTube, Tina G YouTube from 5 until 7:30, and then it goes live on Tina G from 7:30 to 10:30.
Bí Olav, Dornall Licht, or TG Cahar. So from Derwin Honan, from Anna Moore, from Joe Waters, that's been a blast again. And thank you again for your time. Until we meet next Monday night, take care. Goodbye now and good luck.
Thanks, everybody.
Right.
Night, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Stay safe.